Hey cousins, it's your good cousin Mother Mayat. In this video, we're going to talk about the Neanderthals, who they were, and how they are the ancestors of Europeans, Asians, Chinese people, Indian people, and everybody who is non-black, African, or African American. So, I came across this video and I thought it was real interesting because not a lot of people talk about the Neanderthals. But not only do people not talk about the Neanderthals, not many European people talk about the Neanderthals. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to be calling Anglo-Saxons, white people, Europeans. I'm going to call them Europeans. And for black people, African Americans, African people, I'm just going to be calling them melanin people. All right? So when I say melanin people, I'm talking about black people, African American. And when I say Europeans, I'm talking about the people that look like this woman on the screen. So some of you may have seen this video, some of you may have not. I'm going to play the video and then I'm going to break down the things that she said in this video to prove that not only is she correct, but what she really means when she's saying what she's saying. And if it's lagging, I'm sorry. I do have a lot of tabs open because we're going to kind of deep dive into this topic. So let's get into it.
Problem was never the Homo sapiens and what the Homo sapiens do. What if the problem was the Neanderthals, the ones that were dying out, that chose to breed with Homo sapiens, and is the only reason why their existence is relevant today? Neanderthals were aggressive. They had fertility problems, which is why they were dying out. They were not social creatures, complete opposite of Homo sapiens in that regard. Kind of like animals. They had light eyes and light skin, which aren't ideal when you think about the sun. Skin burns, vision can be affected, so they didn't do well in warm environments. They were limited to where they could exist.
Oh, maybe the people that we should be frustrated with are the Homo sapiens that chose to invite these Neanderthals into their circles, because that was the start of all of the destruction that has occurred to this day.
All right, so pretty much she said what she said. In the beginning, she said, what if the problem was not the Homo sapiens? What if the problem was always the Neanderthals? Now, who are the Neanderthals? The Neanderthals are her ancestors. Okay? These are the ancestors. You're looking at the Neanderthals right now. These are the ancestors of everybody who is not black, African, or African American. All right? I'm not being racist. I'm not being rude. I'm just being real. And we're going to deep dive into how they are their ancestors. But I want to break down to you guys who they are, who the Homo sapiens are, so you can kind of understand and understand what she means and how she's right. And I agree with her. And again, I'm just trying to break this down for y'all. Take the information, do whatever you want to do with it. But it's something that's not really talked about because it's really sensitive, especially for the people who come from these people and they don't know, or some of them do. And there have been cover-ups. There have been groups and organizations who have for centuries been covering this information up. So bear with me, cousins, because I want to make sure that you guys have some type of understanding before we depart. All right, so these are the Neanderthals. Now, Neanderthals is the way that I guess it's really pronounced, but for the sake of this video, I'm saying Neanderthals. Okay, potato, potato, tomato, tomato. Who really even says potato? But anyway, now she said the Homo sapiens were not the problem. Who were the Homo sapiens? The Homo sapiens were African Americans. Now, I'm not gonna go too deep, but I'm gonna just try to make sure again that you guys have an understanding. So the Homo sapiens were African American people, melanin people, okay? These are the outcome of melanin people interbreeding with a group of other melanin people that migrated across the world and got caught in this ice age called the Warmian Ice Age. Okay, so look up the Grimaldi people. Okay, the Grimaldi people were a group of Africans because Africa had tribes. Okay, there were lots of different type of melanin people on the continent of Africa. Okay, so there was a group of people called the Grimaldis. You can look them up. And right here it tells you black people inhabited every continent first. Melanin people were all over the world. So what happened was a group of melanin people from Africa, they were traveling across the world, being, doing what they do, migrating everywhere, and they got caught into an ice age. So climate. And what happened was that they lost their melanin. Okay? They lost the melanin, and they ended up coming out like these, like all different types of ways. They just looked kind of like all what you're seeing right now. And so what happened was the African people, so the Grimaldis are now looking like this or whatever. And there are still other melanin people on the continent of Africa. Hundreds, millions. There are a lot more other tribes of melanin people still on the continent of Africa. So right now we're outside the continent of Africa, and now these Europeans, now what they call Homo sapiens, if I'm not believed, they call the Neanderthals Homo sapiens. Okay, melanin people were the Homo sapiens. These were the Homo sapiens, if I'm saying it correctly, but I'll look it up as we keep going and correct it if I'm wrong. These Homo sapiens started to migrate away from Africa. So they started going towards Europe. Now they went to caves in the coldest regions of Europe. Why? Because their genotype ended up changing. So Africa is a warm climate. Now, because they lost the melanin, which is condensed sunlight, which reacts better to warm climates and the sun, they no longer have the melanin. So now they are complete opposite of the Homo sapiens, like she said in the video. They are complete opposite of Homo sapiens because they no longer have the molecule melanin. And I got a whole PowerPoint simply on melanin alone. It's so good. But anyway, that's another video about just going into what melanin is alone. Okay, but they lost the melanin, and again, it resulted to them having, like she said, lighter skin, lighter eyes. And so now they're in these caves in Europe, and I'm going to show you some articles. We're going to get into some articles that will explain to you where majority of all of the Neanderthal and Denisovans, which are another species of Neanderthal, where all of their fossils were found. And they were predominantly found in the caves of Asia, Europe, China, Russia, Siberia. Okay, so these are your cave people, your cavemen. And so, and I'm trying not to go off on a tangent. I'm trying to keep my train of thought. But yeah, so they were your cavemen. So now they are in Europe, in the mountains, in the cold regions, and they began to interbreed. So they interbreed with each other. Now, how do you get so many different species of Neanderthals, like the Denisovians, what I was speaking about? And you see down here got so many other names of what they were called, but they were not Homo sapiens. We were the Homo sapiens, which were the actual humans, if you want to say, or some people like to say divine beings. That is melanin people. They started inbreeding with each other, and then other Africans from Africa, as they were migrating as well, came across these people, and they also started to interbreed with them. They started to, make more people with them. Pretty much, they started to repopulate with them, and they also started to teach these people, these Homo sapiens, how to be civil because they were not civil. And she even told you that these Neanderthals were aggressive. And this is everything she said. I'm just saying what she said. She said they were aggressive. They had fertility problems. They were not social creatures. She said they were burnt by the sun. She said they ended up well to warm environments. She said a whole bunch of things. And so in them caves, they were wild. They were not civil at all. They were not only interbreeding with each other, but they were mating with animals. Okay, they were also mating with animals. So I hope I didn't lose you guys. Pretty much, melanin people were migrating. A group of melanin people were migrating called the Grimaldis. They got caught in the Ice Age, lost their melanin, and ended up looking like this. They started living in caves and interbreeding with each other, interbreeding with animals, and started having offsprings that were just like mutants. And they also had offsprings that were what we call today the European. Some people know them as Anglo-Saxons, which they really go by, or Caucasian, which are the mountains that their ancestors and Neanderthals were dwelling in, like the Caucasus Mountains, or white people. And so right here in this article from Princeton University, it tells us that the first Neanderthal genome was sequenced using DNA collected from ancient bones. It was accompanied by the discovery that modern humans in Asia, Europe, and America inherited approximately 2% of their DNA from Neanderthals, proving humans and Neanderthals had interbred after humans left Africa. Okay, so if you are melanated African or African American, you do not have Neanderthal DNA. Down here, it says that. A comparable catalog of Neanderthal ancestry in African populations, however, has remained an acknowledged blind spot for the field due to technical constraints and the assumption that Neanderthals and ancestral African populations were geographically isolated from each other. Melanin people could not survive in that snow in Europe. They could not survive in the cold regions of Europe. Hence the Grimaldi losing their melanin. So that's why they were geographically isolated. Okay? So hence the phenotypes of these Neanderthals. Okay? Now who do their phenotypes look like? All the excessive hair, their facial structures. Okay? If you read these articles, they'll tell you how the cheekbones and the forehead and all the bones, the facial construct is not like African American or melanin peoples. It's more like Europeans. Okay? It's more like everybody who is not melanated or who are not African Americans. And again, you can go research this for yourself. If you have eyes, you can clearly see who these people resemble more than, any other ethnic group. Now, again, here's another article that says the Neanderthals are our closest hominin relative and are the best known of our early ancestors. Now, when they say our, they are not talking about all of us. See, this society has not been telling us the truth for centuries, okay? We get that. Now, that's why your good cousin is here to let you know what it is. Our does not mean all of us, we are one, kumbaya. No, it does not mean that. We have been told for centuries that we are all the same. We are all not the same. And this is by genetics. This is by anatomy, okay? We are not the same. So when they're saying our and us, when they're trying to always, make us one, they are always talking about European people. They are always talking about their people. They don't be talking about nobody else but them. All right. This society, America, was designed for the European, not for my cousins out there. So whenever they're talking about they're talking about them. All right. When they're doing research and looking up stuff, they make it always about them. And so here's another article. And again, read these articles, go do your research for yourself. If you think that I'm being, unfair or rude or racist, go look this up for yourself. Let's see. Neanderthals are genetically distinct from modern humans, but are more closely related to us than chimpanzees are. Neanderthals are more closely related to us than chimpanzees are. They're not talking about you. They're not talking about me. They're not talking about melanin people. They're talking about European people. They're talking to their people. All right? We do not have Neanderthal DNA. Why? Because we are the common shared ancestor of the Neanderthal, which means they derived from us. Now, saying that again, that does not mean that we have their DNA, because again, they separated from us geographically. So after they parted from Africa and got caught in that ice age, the climate genetically changed them. So by genetics, my cousins, we are not like any other ethnic group on the planet. Hence why, the nose shape is different. Okay? By genetic design, European people, you see it, they have what? Longer, more sharper, pointier noses. Why is that? Because in Europe, in the caves of China, in the cold regions, your nostrils are smaller so that it can keep the air warmer, so it can heat up the brain, right? Because your brain would freeze it up in the cold. And the opposite for melanin people, why our noses are more wider and our features and stuff more fuller, but our nose in particular, because we had to cool down our brain being in all that sun, or our brains would overheat. So we needed to breathe in more air to cool down our brains. Look it up. Look it up. Okay? Now, I'm trying to make it make sense. I'm trying to hit all my points. Okay? Now, I just showed you proof on how Europeans have their DNA. This is the Smithsonian. All right? This is Smithsonian saying this, okay? This is Princeton saying this. All right. This is another website, again, telling you, and it's breaking down like all the genotypes of the hominins. So go out there and look it up. Again, I'm just breaking it down for y'all briefly. I'm not really trying to get deep into it. So here's a video. I don't know if I need to rewind it back. I probably do gotta rewind it back. Alright, so these are scientists talking about it. And I'm not gonna play the whole thing. But he's gonna say something that's really interesting, and I want you guys to hear it.
The Neanderthals fit into that particular scenario in the Himalayas.
Yeah, I wondered if you wanted to go there. So
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Call them out.
So the first thing you have to understand is that humans historically have slept with anything that they encounter.
Don't look at me and say that.
And so humans, right, Homo sapiens, we evolved in Africa about 300,000 years ago. And as we sort of become so successful, so adaptable, our superpower at full display, we get into Europe, we interact with Neanderthals there. What do? We admix with them, to use the sterile scientific term, and we have children. And we can still see the genetic evidence of that today.
But a quick question.
Okay, now you hear how he's saying they had children and we can see the genetic evidence today? That's the man sitting in the middle. All right, that's the man that was just talking. The Europeans, that is the offspring of today. Now they keep saying us and we because they don't want to be affiliated with this. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is about to hit the top, like he's pretty much about to touch on that. All right. But he doesn't want to seem like this is his ancestors. So they try to, they want to feel as normal as possible or as included. So that's why they use terms like us and we, so we don't separate the two. But my cousins, the two are separate. Like, they are genetically different from us. Look at them. Look at his hair. Look at his hair. There's a difference. Facial structures, there's a difference. Why are the phenotypes so different? Because the genetics are different. The anatomy is different, and nobody wants to ever talk about this, okay? And Neil deGrasse Tyson, the one on the right, will tell you that the anthropologists, they were racist, okay? Most of the people that come up with all the research and all these findings are usually European people. They don't look like you and me. And so they always be lying. Like, they be lying. Okay. And so, but right now when they're telling you stuff like, Neanderthals come from, Europeans come from Neanderthals, they not lying. Sometimes they put the truth out there, but they know that nobody's going to read it, or, our people don't read. And so, like I said, if you want to hide something from our people, put it in a book. They know we don't read, and they know we don't care about ourselves. They know we really don't care. So they could just tell us anything pretty much. But listen how he about to go into it.
Question I have to slip in there. You said 300,000 years ago, we come out of Africa, get into Europe, and admix with the Neanderthal implies Neanderthals either left Africa earlier or evolved as Neanderthal in Europe.
Yes.
Now we know from DNA tests.
Yes. So yes, the Grimaldis left Africa early and were migrating, and they got caught in the Permian Ice Age, and they lost their melanin. So they started to dwell in caves.
That pure Africans have zero Neanderthal DNA. So there must have been some deep European origins of the Neanderthal. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Whether it's deeply in Europe or sort of into the Near East is much debated. But yeah, it's outside of Africa. So, humans and Neanderthals, of course, have a common ancestor about 600,000 years ago. Those two branches go their separate ways. Ours in Africa, theirs in the Near East and Europe. And
you see how he liked to say ours in Africa? No, he was a part of the offspring that went to Europe. And I'm not being rude, but that's real. And so, y'all, he about to get into it, but he is not the our. But that's what make them feel included.
At some point, they become what we would consider to be the Neanderthal gene pool. And when our branch comes back in and intersects them again, we have these matings and this admixture.
And so we are fertile with each other because we have the same common ancestor, even though we're many, many years
a recent one
down from the line. And an interesting fact that I discovered in my own work for Starry Messenger, that book, was we grew up with the archetype of this stupid backward Neanderthal.
Yeah, they're the caveman that knows nothing.
Right, like that never stopped dragging its knuckles.
Right.
Then we find out that Black Africans have no Neanderthal blood, yet there's admixtures in current European white people. And
not just Europeans, by the way.
Did research papers start saying how creative and inventive Neanderthals were. There's a complete shift in the early 1990s. Herman, am I right here?
Period. He is right. And I'm going to prove to you how he's right. And I think it's this article where, and I should have highlighted, I was going to highlight, but it's in this article where it says that what he just said pretty much, how at first, they were these stupid cave people, but then studies showed that they were intuitive and innovative because they controlled fire and pretty much made spears and stuff. They did do that stuff, but they made spears to hunt for their food and to eat it raw. Okay, they didn't know how to cook. All right, look at them. They didn't know how to do pretty much of anything. They didn't know how to do anything until, okay? See, charts like this was always talking about the European. It was always talking about the European. And then Darwinism came along, and we're going to get into that too. But again, it was not cool, or it was not, popping to come from these people. But then when they find out that our people don't have none of their DNA, now, oh, they cool, they invented it and all that. These people were in the caves, eating raw meats, having sex with animals. Okay, why you think they love dogs so much? All right. They were doing things with dogs they should not be doing. They were eating raw meat. They were not intelligent. They were not smart at all. That's why history has been distorted the way it has been. And that's why a group of supposed scientists have come together and create something called eugenics. And that's why another man came along and created something called Darwinism. All right. Because for years, melanin people have been studied. Okay, ever since was it World War II, if I'm not mistaken, or the Vietnam War, one of those wars. Ever since those wars, when they discovered the pineal gland in the melanin soldiers, they discovered how active it was even when they were dead. They did autopsies on their bodies, and they discovered that these people still have functioning glands when they deceased. And not only do they have functioning glands, they had something called a pineal gland. Okay, and that pineal gland housed the neuromelanin. All right, that's another video. But what I'm trying to say is that after they discovered that, they were like, oh no, we need to start, pretty much, figuring out who melanin people really are. So for years, for decades, for centuries, they have been experimenting illegally and inhumanely on melanin people. Hence, why are melanin people afraid to go to the hospital and go to the doctors? Oh, it's genetic trauma. And we deal with that a lot. Y'all don't even know. Some of the trauma y'all got is genetic. Like, it is not even your trauma. It come from your ancestors. And so pretty much what Darwin did, they used Darwin to pretty much lie again and tell us, well, pretty much he pretty much came to tell us that if you are not fit for your environment, then you won't survive. And what backed him up was a practice called eugenics, or a movement called eugenics that was created by his cousin, Francis Galton, or Galton, however you pronounce it, whatever. All right. They came up with something called eugenics. Now, a whole group of European people came together when they started realizing how amazing, powerful, just downright divine melanin people were. They was like, oh no, we cannot let them know this. All right, we have to hide this from them. So eugenics was pretty much not the way to hide it, but the way to exterminate melanin people, and to do it systematically and discreetly. All right. So from the birth of eugenics, you get Planned Parenthood. All right. And you get a slew of other ways to go about trying to exterminate melanin people and melanin children, so that melanin people cannot reproduce and repopulate the planet. Now, in the findings of how melanin people were super amazing, they also found out how not amazing European genetics was. Why? Because their ancestors' genetics were not strong or good. Right here, eugenics says it derives from the Greek word eugenis, meaning good in birth or good in stock. Okay, who has the good genes? Who has the bad genes? His job was to make sure that black people believe that they had the bad genes and white people believe they had the good genes. That's it and simple. If you want to know more, do more research, okay? Because it goes really, really deep when it comes to the eugenics movement. And these people were really grim, and it's just terrible, okay? So that is why they realized that, hey, our ancestors are these people. So we got to act like we got good genes, because we also got to not let people know that these are our ancestors. Why? Because they will not be able to control you. They will not be able to be in the position they are today if you knew that these were their ancestors. Simple. I mean, you tell me, is you about to let somebody who look like this run all over top of you and, you know, make you feel inferior? So you do your research, cousins. Now, to explain my point about how they was acting in the caves in Europe, there's a video out there that can show you, and it's called Quest for Fire. This is the movie that shows how the Neanderthals, it's pretty much just talking about the Neanderthals. Now, another thing that got me was Ron Perlman. Now, I think Ron Perlman is a cool actor, but he looked just like one of them. Like, he looked like one of them. So I wanted to pretty much make this video and go deep. So cousins, you know, they've been calling us monkeys and all that, and they so quick to say that, you know, we come from Lucy, when Lucy was a Neanderthal. Okay, she was a Homo sinin, and she's the ancestor of them, not you. But he looks so much like a Neanderthal. And if you really get close to him and Indians, they're over excessively hairy. I mean, I've met Indians who've had hair growing on the bridge of their nose, on the places on their hands, on the back of their like actual hand, like not even just the knuckles, but on the hand. Like, I mean, it's giving Neanderthal. Long story short. And shout out to that queen, you know, I mean, well, yeah, because it's brave for a European woman to talk about these things. You know, it is really brave for her. So she's a queen for that. You know, she's going hard because people don't talk about it, especially, you know, and I don't know if she knows that these are her ancestors, but I just proved to y'all and told y'all that, you know, this article says they have 2% DNA. There's another article, I think it's this article somewhere in here, that says they have between 6 to 9% DNA from Neanderthals. Okay. And then the other article I showed y'all said that we, melanin people, had no DNA. We don't trace back to them. All right. And then getting to my last point about the traits. What further connects them to the Neanderthal? Okay, she talked about the behavior. All right, so I told you this movie right here, Quest for Fire, will show you how they was acting. She said that they were aggressive. This movie will show you how they were. Okay, this movie will show you and pretty much show you how they were aggressive, and, you know, piggyback on what she was saying. Now, fertility problems. Who have fertility problems in this country? Europeans. Here's an article from Global News. Why white Americans are dying faster than they are being born. There's also a book called Birth Dearth that will furthermore explain this topic. I'm not going to get into it too much, but yes, there is fertility issues going on with white women in this country, European women in this country, and so do your research on it. But yes, there are more white Americans dying than being born. Something they're not going to tell you. Why? Because they'll lose their power. Let's keep going. Now, or the power they think they have, because the only person that is deemed powerful to me is the Most High God. Okay. No, she said they're not social creatures, and then she said they're complete opposites of Homo sapiens. They were kind of like animals. All right? Again, look at this movie. They were walking on all fours, okay? And at some point, they started walking on their hind legs. And these articles will explain all of that, right? They were walking upright at some point. And how they start walking upright is because our ancestors taught them how to walk upright. Okay, this is where the Moors would come in when you want to talk about civilizing a people or civilizing a species, but that's for another video. Again, you can look up the Moors, you can look up what the Moors did, who they were, and stuff like that. So, but when you want to come talking about how did these people, and how did, Europeans become civil, because if they're the ancestors of these people, then of course they had to been walking on all fours and doing the same things. Their genes are recessive, and that's where we get into when she said being burnt by the sun. All right, they don't have melanin anymore. All right, melanin is condensed sunlight. Melanin is an intelligence molecule. Okay, melanin is the ultimate molecule of life. Now, I'm not saying that Europeans do not have melanin at all, but they are not melanin beings, which means they do not have every type of melanin that there is to have. Okay, there are 4 different types of melanin. There's euromelanin, neuromelanin, pheomelanin, and chalatin melanin or something like that. And that melanin is the melanin that protects us from heavy metals. All right. And that's for another video as well. If you want to know what the heavy metals are that the chalatin melanin protects us from. Hence food, eating meat, the stuff in the air, chemtrails. But anyway, skin burnt. Who can't be in the sun that long? Who can't be in the sun that long without getting sunburnt? All right. What ethnic group is dying every 2 hours from melanoma? Do your research. All right. And again, she said do not do well in warm environments. Melanin people are naturally sun people. All right. If you ever heard the term people of the sun, that's us. Children of the sun, that's us. Okay. Why do Europeans walk in the snow with shorts on? I bet you didn't know that is because of their genetics. They have chemicals in their body. What is it? It's sulfur and ammonia. And when those chemicals mix, it heats them up. That's why they always got to be cool. If you work with them, it's probably super cold. Now, I know some of my cousins out there don't like to be hot, but Europeans, they really don't like to be hot. Like, they keep the air on in the winter. Now, just because you may do that too, they built different. They are really built different. And that's why I'm telling you it's genetics. And they're not like us. And again, I just showed y'all. I broke it down the best way I could. And I'm going to leave it right there. I hope I didn't make it too long. I try to hit my points. I hope I showed y'all everything that I wanted to show y'all and told y'all everything. So yeah, again, when you hear like stuff coming out, do some research, okay? Study showed this, study showed that. Eugenics came out because they wanted to hide this information that I'm telling you right now. Egyptologist was invented so that they could hide the real facts about who the Egyptians were. All right, they try and tell you that the Egyptians were Europeans. How could they be Europeans when European people, like this woman just said, could not do well in warm environments? You are your ancestors, whether y'all want to believe this or not. What is genetics? Genetics is the blood from your ancestors that's running through you, that will run through your children. So do whatever y'all want to do with this information. If you liked this video, if you learned anything, like the video. And if you want to know more, subscribe to the channel, because I have lots more videos coming out about stuff like this and about different other things that further help us learn more about who we are and to furthermore help us love who we are, because they hide this stuff because, again, they don't want you to love you. So they got to lie to you. And they do it systematically. And they do it so discreetly that you don't even know what they're doing. You don't even notice that you don't like who you are. You don't like the color or the skin that you in. But look who they come from. And I just showed you how they have similar traits as these people. all right, aggressive, who be out here not making life fun, who sucks the fun out of everything. European people, how do they do that? They don't want you to live with them in their neighborhoods. Okay, you move next door or move in an all-white community, you see how they act. At the workplace, if you work around Europeans, okay, and I'm only using Europeans predominantly, even though these are the ancestors of other, Asians, Chinese people, Mexicans, and everybody else. But I'm using European people because these are the people who, quote unquote, are the white supremacists who try to reign supreme and who tries to be in power, think they are the most, like the eugenics said, they think they have the better genes. And they think that's what makes them superior and makes them great. It makes them superior and why we are inferior. But it's all been a lie. Just so you can feel like trash. And because I love you, I wanted to try to break it down the best way I know how, y'all. And so I love y'all so much. Do what you want with this information. Share the video with others. I did make a TikTok. If you want to support, you can follow me on TikTok. But until next time, y'all can follow me on other social media platforms at Mother My Yacht. Until next time, y'all. Melanated Without Apology vibes activated.